Great start.
Right. So, are y'all ready to hear a good story?
Yes.
All right. All right. So, this story, it happens in the Bible about a week before Jesus dies, is crucified. So, this is a true story from the Word of God. The time was about a week before Passover, and Jesus was in Bethany, and he was with his disciples, and he was invited to a dinner in his honor, and Lazarus was there. He had been raised from the dead, and his sisters, Martha and Mary, were also there, and Martha was serving. And Mary came in with a jar of perfume. It was nard. It was about a pint's worth. It was very expensive. And she poured it on Jesus's feet and then dried his feet with her hair. And the whole room was just filled with the aroma.
Mm.
And then Judas started grumbling, and he said, "Why was this wasted? This perfume was worth a whole year's wages. Shouldn't it have been sold and given to the poor?" Well, Judas didn't really care about the poor. He was the keeper of the money box, and he used to often help himself to the money that was in there. And Jesus looked at him and said, "Leave her alone. What she has done is a beautiful thing. She has saved this for preparation for my burial. The poor you will always have with you, but me you will not always have." And that's a true story from the Word of God.
Wonderful.
Did I get it all?
You got it all.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Now, this story, we often talk about all the different characters in it, but today we really want to focus on just Mary and what she did and all the things that in the story about Mary. So, what do y'all think? What do you take away from this story with Mary and what she did? So just unmute yourself. You can undo your video as well so we can see you if you'd like. And tell us, what do you think? What stands out to you in this story?
Mary teaches us the time of Jesus.
Abdul, I see you're talking, but I can't hear you very well. Can you tell me one more time?
Yeah, I'm just trying to tell Adama about
okay.
what Mary did. Yes, I was trying to talk to her in Creole.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the story of Mary is really challenging, and it's a blessing for us today, especially in this time of COVID-19. I'm happy because she sacrificed everything to honor Jesus. So, yeah, the sacrificial part of it is what touched my heart most.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Someone else? So let me ask a question.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Hey, okay.
So how long do you think it would take to save a year's salary? Any ideas?
Why do you say a year's salary?
Well, the perfume was worth a year's salary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, go on, Abdul. Sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, fine. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. You please continue.
Okay. I would say it almost takes about 2 to 3 years. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
Wow.
Man, she had to be a good saver.
She had to really be a good saver. Yeah, I would probably, my guess would be 8 to 10.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody else? What do y'all think?
Yeah,
So I think oh, okay.
Go
I will
ahead.
think the same. It will take probably 8 to 10 years. If it's about one's salary.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, both of you are right, as well as Emmanuel is, because given the circumstances, for example, if you're like you guys, the way you are, you're like a family, you need to have maybe children to care for and stuff. It might take a longer period of time because you said 8 to 10 years. But say, for example, Mary, who we've not been told whether she has like a husband or something, and if she had a husband, how would she be like washing Jesus' feet and stuff?
Mm.
So I would say if I were married, it would take me a shorter period of time as compared to you guys if you were married.
Yeah, good.
I like that.
I like that.
Single people can say faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we should say that or not, Al. You know? Anybody else want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think I was trying to add something, and being the fact that it depends to the kind of what was the cost of the perfume, you know, maybe for now buying a really expensive perfume, and depends to where the country you're from. In Sierra Leone, buying an expensive perfume might cost you maybe $200 to $300, and if you're saving bit by bit, and that will cost you more than 10 years. Some people to save that kind of money. Yeah, it depends to the kind of area you find yourself. So yeah, she was really planning ahead, so for that purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think so? Do you think people called Mary stingy woman because she was saving?
Honestly, most of the time, I guess, yeah, most of the time, I guess she would have been called stingy woman for saving that much. And even Judas testified that.
Yeah.
Judas was thinking differently, because maybe he was probably thinking that, oh wow, what's this? What is she doing? That's stingy,
Yeah.
maybe that would be running through his mind. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think all the time people might have been calling her that name.
What else do you like about this story or stands out to you? It's so quiet when y'all are all muted. Feel free to unmute or show your picture. I feel like I'm staring at a screen of just blank faces. I like to see faces.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the way Judas was reasoning. He was reasoning like a a financial steward person. He was reasoning like somebody who really takes care of and wants to see that finances are used properly. So I like the way Judas was reasoning.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Joseph.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
what?
okay. Wayma, you want to go ahead and what was the question? Oh, yeah, there's lots of questions in the chat.
You can't take too long.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay. So we have two great guests today, and I'm going to ask Emmanuel to go first. My wife and I had a wonderful time hearing his story yesterday, and we are excited for you guys to get to hear Emmanuel's story. So, Emmanuel, you want to tell us about your story regarding savings?
Yeah, first, Emmanuel, can you do your video if you have enough bandwidth to do that, so they can see you?
Okay.
You know?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay.
So I'm going to briefly be sharing my story. I was chatting with Mary Beth and John, and we had some time to talk. And I thought like I will just tell you a brief part of my story, and then we can probably learn from one another. Basically, my story revolves around my family, our family project that we had, and some of the lessons that we learned from that story. My wife and I learned about saving, and we had been saving for a long time, but our savings always came and will meet needs, will meet so many challenges that we had to solve in one way or the other. And we ended up really having money, but also not achieving so much. So when we moved from Kenya to Kigali, we were living in a rented house that was a bit costly for us. And we stayed for quite some time struggling and thinking about what it will take us to really be able to stop renting and paying the amount of money that we are paying for renting, and probably be able to start building a family house where we could move in and be able to settle in that. Now, we started by, looking at the whole construction project, and we knew for us, building a house was going to be a mission impossible with just the little amount of money that we could be saving every month. And so we started talking about what it would really take us to get started. So really building the house that we have been able to build, and we're still building, it's a work in progress, but to a point where we thought like, maybe when we reach this stage, we can move in and stop renting, so that the amount we're using to pay for rent, we'll use the same to be able to contribute that to the construction that is work in progress. And so my wife and I set that goal very clearly with the duration in time that we wanted to probably move into that house in 2 years, at a certain stage where we felt like it had the roofing, it had the doors and all that. So our saving became really challenging, because we knew that if we are going to start building a house and then reach a point where we'll move into that house, it will probably take several years before we could say that this is really the kind of a thing that we wanted. So we agreed that we are going to reach a certain stage where we will just move in into an unfinished house and be able to continue with the rest of the progress. We knew that it was a mountain, and for us, we thought like saving will take us reason like people who are climbing a mountain, knowing that we'll reach at some point, get tired, and probably move back and try to restart the journey. And we kept doing that. And we realized we had a saving goal that was so clear. We had time attached to it, but we realized that we were not going to be able to save all the amount of money to be able to probably do the stage of the project that we wanted to do. Instead, we realized that we could be taking money out of that and be able to do every stage at a time. And we started thinking about like, what will it take us to do the foundation? Probably it's going to take us 2 lorries and maybe a lorry of sand and some labor. and that was a goal. And so we break the project into several phases, and all the time we could just fix our eyes into a certain stage of the project. The more we kept saving, we knew that it was going to be really difficult. We agreed on several things. One of the things that we agreed on during, the saving and us being able to meet our goal, we agreed that we were going to stop all other things that we thought like were really not essential for us, to just focus on that project. So we said, for example, we're not going to be just buying new clothes and doing, the things that we're used to do every now and then. We knew that it was going to be very difficult. We moved into an environment that was really challenging. We said, well, we're not going to buy not even a bicycle or a motorbike. Instead, we'll focus on just building the house that we want to build. And then after that, we will be able to get other things later. So because we are saving towards a goal, almost we stopped so many things that we were supposed to be doing. We learned that, of course, if we had to save, the discipline that we needed was going to be paramount. And so we kept a certain level of discipline that helped us to focus on that. We knew that if we had to give, we had to give where we knew that, this was part of our budget. So when it comes to our family, planning and budgeting, my wife and I agreed that every spending that we do, every, planning that we do regarding finances, we have to do it together. And any spending that we do, we have to, do it together as a family. So as we continued to do that, we reached a point where definitely we knew that it was not going to be possible for us to meet those targets that we had set. But one of the things that we learned during our construction project is that much of the amount of money that we spend on that house came in as, support that we got from some of our friends and people who saw what we were doing and supported us. But the support came in because we had that clear goal of what we wanted to achieve in terms of, building that family house. So we, after the second year that we had set as a target, we had only managed to do the roofing and put the doors, but we moved into the house and continued to do every single bit of the construction as time went by. And up to now, we're still constructing the same house, but at least we were able to achieve our goal of not paying rent every month. And some of the things that we learned during that phase was that it is really important, especially where you want to achieve a certain goal, that you have to define it clearly, attach timeline to it. And as a result of focusing on that project, we got so much support and help from friends and people that who joined us into that. But at the same time, it taught us a lot of lessons. Some of the lessons that we learned is that really for you to be able to achieve anything in terms of saving, you have to set your goal very, very clearly. If you are a family, we learned that it was very, very important for us to be transparent and open to one another in terms of planning, budgeting, and spending. And that we did it to make sure that if we had an additional money that was probably an additional income that was not part of our budget, we knew how to spend that money. We knew if we had to give, we made that decision as a family because we believed that, just like two eyes can have a wider view. We understood that we needed to look at our saving goal and our project together as a family. And as a result, we managed to move from our rental house and into our own home, which is still under construction, but by God's grace, we were able to accomplish that goal. So briefly, that achieving that goal called for discipline, it called for clarity in that goal, it called for a lot of sacrifice and patience. For us, saving meant a lot in terms of denying ourselves a lot that everyone else will have to make sure that we focus on achieving that goal, and we were able to achieve it. So in brief, that's my short story.
I remember.
I had on YouTube. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember hearing it the other day. You had a college professor that gave you some counsel. Can you share that?
Yeah, I had a person who used to. That was a long time when I was still in college. I used to have a professor who taught accounting. I actually remember his name, James Mwangi. He used to teach us a lot about finances, and he taught us so many lessons. And he kept saying that if you really want to succeed in life, make sure that when you get money, save money to be able to get or accomplish anything you want. And one of the lessons he said, like, make sure you can save at least 30% of what you get. And when I got married, I remember one of the things that I talked to my wife, and that helped us a long time. For a long time, we had to agree that every time we got an income, we'll come together, do our savings, but target to at least save 30%. And we kept that as a discipline for a long time because, you know, when we transitioned from Kenya to Rwanda, I stayed for about 6 to 8 months without a job. And the money that helped us to go through that period was as a result of the savings, and also that gave us a foundation to be able to achieve a lot of things. So it's a discipline that we maintain even to date, that irrespective of the situation, we target to just set that as a side in terms of saving. And even when we're doing this project, it contributed big time on that.
So, Emmanuel, another thing I loved about your story, you found a way to manage saving and also being generous. How did you manage those two things together?
Yeah, so it's really about discipline and values. I think in our lives and as a family, we learned that God gives, provides everything, and that lesson has taught us that whatever God gives us, He also presents opportunities for us to help and support other people. We have people, not just family members, but also people in our communities that probably we support here and there. And managing that meant that saving does not mean you become stingy. Saving only provides an opportunity for you to accomplish a goal. So for us, we knew that be it the people that we worship with through our DBS or the home church that we do, the people that we disciple as a family, most of them are needy. And so people will come to us, they needed to be helped. And we knew that we had a goal and the things that we are doing, that God expects us to be supportive and give to the people. So we did not stop giving because we were saving. And our giving was very specific. We don't just give because somebody asked. We pray about our giving. We make sure that when we give, we are also giving a person in a way that they can be able to help themselves going forward. So we really purpose in our hearts that we are not going to stop helping those who need our help or giving because we have a project, but we also kind of were very wise in terms of making decisions regarding giving.
I remember you said when you gave, you thought about your values and what you valued. And that was just so impressive to me, is like you said, you prayed about it and thought, but you gave according to your values.
Yes.
That really touched my heart.
So one of the things that we learned throughout, maybe this is a surprise, but probably the amount of money we have spent on a construction project is about 40% from our own resources. God provided for us in miraculous ways that we can't explain. So our value that we've learned is that when you give God, God provides. I remember people will come, some of our friends, to visit us, and when they saw what we were doing, they will just give us amount of money that up to now we can't explain. So we got friends who supported us. Even the money we used to buy land, it was money that was given by a friend, you know. So I think for me, what I have learned, what we have learned as a family is that giving as a value has helped us to trust in God, that He provides beyond our needs. So that's, I think, is a lesson that we learned from that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So as you said that you determined that you weren't going to live the way people expected you to live because of your job. Could you talk about the tension that caused you?
Yeah, that one was another very difficult situation for us. So when we came from Kenya, we are working with people, meeting people who really knew us, probably from Kenya, and also some of the family members. They knew that we just came from a foreign country. People expected that we were wealthy, we're living probably in a good house or something. But everybody expected that probably you'll be driving a good car. If not, living a certain standard that people expected. So I remember we will be invited to go to speak in meetings, and some of the meetings we walked to some distances because they were not very long distances. Other places we took a motorbike where we could not get to the location. We even rode a bicycle or anything. And I remember one person spoke to us, and I was with my wife. They said, people will take you serious if you came in a car. Why didn't you come with a car? So we got home and we were talking with my wife. She said, a car gives you a certain class, and you needed to appear or look in a certain for people to take you serious. I told my wife, no, people have expectation on us. They know probably because we speak to church leaders and other people who are highly respected in the society. We expected to look a certain way or meet a certain standard, but that was not where we were. We said we are going to live within our means, try our very best, and probably those things will come with the time. And for sure, every place you went, whether you went to visit family, people had, this guy is like this. They gave a very good description of who you are, the kind of probably work people knew you used to do, and had a lot of expectations of you. But we said, no, we are not going to look like everyone else. We'll try to live within our means and trust that God will provide us and for us, and continue also to help us achieve the goals or the targets that we set.
Yeah, I love that part of your story. Because you decided not to look like everybody else, all of a sudden, now you're living a life not like anybody else. God has blessed you, and you managed to be generous, to maintain your savings, and God has multiplied what you're doing. And now people look at you and go, well, how did this happen? Yeah. So, and I know you've told me you heard this not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times. But what do you say to people who call you stingy man because you have savings?
You cannot stop what people will say or think about you. That's one thing that is so important that you need to know. When you set a goal or you're disciplined towards achieving something, and people will always look at you and say, wow, he's like this. Why doesn't he help so-and-so? Why doesn't he do that? And those expectations, you cannot do anything about it. What you do what you think is right in terms of helping and supporting people. And if you try to make everybody, fit or accept, you try to meet everyone's expectations because probably of the status you have or where you are in the society, you may never achieve anything. So I do believe that people will call you stingy because they don't understand you. People don't understand your story unless you tell them your story. People will always think everything they want about you. If they saw you in a car and maybe you are paying a loan, they will say you are a rich man. But they don't know you're servicing a loan in a bank. Yeah. And so you can't do that. So I believe people call you stingy because of what they expect and think about you, and you cannot change anything about that. You have to make sure that you give as the Lord leads you, and also within the values that you have as a person or as a family, not according to people's expectations.
Okay. And one last question before we move on to Sylvester. What would you say to someone who's come to the financial stewardship workshop and they began on their financial journey, and then it got hard and they stopped and they're discouraged and they might say, oh, this doesn't work? What would you say to encourage that person?
Saving towards a goal is like climbing a mountain. Okay. Oh. And here I'm talking about a mountain where you know it's not going to be easy. At some point you get a place where you get tired and you sit down. Other places, maybe you will step on a slippery place and even fall. But if you have to reach at the top, you have to keep going. You know, one thing that is very important is when you think about saving, you have to define your goal. You have to be disciplined about that goal, and you have to be patient, because saving towards a goal or a project or anything is not an event. It's a journey, it's a process. It calls for discipline, it calls for patience, but most importantly, it calls for perseverance. Otherwise, sometimes people think or say like, oh, well, I have this type of project, my earning is this amount. I have learned that achieving any project or any goal that you've saved about is not about really how much you earn. It is about the discipline that you've commit yourself to, and what you do in terms of trying to get there.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you'll stay on the group, and then we'll be taking questions after we hear Sylvester's story. Is that good?
Sure, I'm right there.
Okay.
So remember your questions for him, okay, everybody?
Yeah. Okay, so Sylvester, do we have Sylvester unmuted?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great, Sylvester.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we see your face? So
Hi, everyone. My bandwidth might disturb the network. So.
Okay. Yeah, we were so delighted to hear your story the other day, Sylvester. You said something about your college education, that you had a master's degree. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I remember. Actually said it the same way. I never took up any course in finance or economics, even from undergraduate to university, and I've never had any financial stewardship education or class. Never had any. And as I keep saying, in the African home setting, sex and money is something you don't hear parents talk about. So if we grow up living the same life we saw our parents living in terms of finance or whatever we saw that was, you either get from your big brothers or your sisters, you just pick it up and you continue to move with it. That was the best I could ever have in terms of finances.
Yeah, that's so true in the United States as well.
Yeah.
So, Sylvester, as a way to get into your story, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you were living before the workshop and then what has happened?
Okay. Yeah, so before we had the training, I was just living on my salary without planning, without budgeting, nothing. I mean, I think the only thing my wife knew was my salary, but how I spent it, it had nothing to do with her. I control my own finances. She also controls her finances. And that was basically it. We talk about things we want to buy and maybe put some money towards it. And that was the end. We didn't have any budget as a couple. We didn't have time to pray over our money, or even it was just personally the individual plans that we have, and we follow it. And that was all. There was nothing as a family talking about money together as a husband and a wife.
Mm-hmm. And so then you came to this seminar, and what happened after that?
Yeah, it's been a great change, I must say. It was a happy moment, especially. I always say this, that it wasn't just having you talk to us about finances. We could see you guys lived it from the way you talk to each other. We could tell you are living the testimony. You're actually living what you are preaching. So I said to myself before even the training that, oh, these are just some white folks coming to, say all this stuff about spending our money and all that. So, but let me just hear them out and see how it goes. So we started the whole thing, and anytime we end, there's something new for me to think about. And the day, I mean, I've heard the scripture, but when you guys made mention, Proverbs 22:7, that the borrower is slave to the lender, it kept worrying me for a while. I mean, it means I'm a slave to all those that has lent to me, and I can't believe God should be my master and, being another slave to someone else. So after the training, we took a radical decision. And actually, right after the training, I go home and talk to my wife about it. So we share the same story. We talk over some few things that I learned and I transferred to her. So we decided, we need to come out of debt. That was our first goal that we decided to do, to come out of debt. And we had to list them. And I mentioned earlier on, there were people I was owing, I didn't even know that I was owing. So we sat down to actually list them out. And I realized all these debts were my debts. It had nothing to do with my wife. She didn't owe anyone. She was good with her money, but I had a lot of debt. So I said to her, we need to find a way to pay all this debt. And it was a difficult decision. Actually, we had to go back. After our wedding, there's a tradition in our church where people buy you gift items for your wedding. So we had a lot of gift items available in our storeroom. And I said, hey, this is the amount we owe. Let's look at the items, the one we can sell off and pay off the debt. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So we went in, looked at the items, posted on a few WhatsApp groups, and we had people calling. And I must say, within a month, we were able to pay off every debt.
Wow.
We had to call one person and arrange for a 2-week payment. That was a good friend of mine who had given some money to do some work. But actually, he changed his mind of doing that work and I used the money, so I had to pay him back. So we had to call him and arrange with him that every 2 weeks, I'll want to pay this amount. And within a month, we were able to clear off every debt. We had to sell some of the gift items that we received, sold the fridge, sold the blender, microwave, rice cooker, because we already have these items before we got married. We had bought them, but during the wedding, other people gave it to us as gift items, and we're keeping them till if someone gets married, we pick one and parcel and send to the person. But here was a case where we're in deep debt and we had to pay them off. So we sold them off. And I think I've come to the point to realize money is a tool to use to accomplish God's purpose, and that we are called to be good stewards of that. So if God has given you this tool, and instead of you using it to accomplish His purpose, you misuse it, you're not being a good steward, and you incur debt, then definitely you are a slave. You are not worthy of the master's, tool. So we had to make a radical decision to come out of debt. And I mean, I thought of getting out of debt, but there was no plan. So I learned how it is done from you guys, that you need to list, find what you can sell to pay it off, call the person and make an arrangement and have a plan towards it. So within the first 1 month, it wasn't about saving, it was about getting out of debt for us.
Yeah, and you, I remember you saying that at the end of the month how you spent every dollar. How are you tracking your spending?
Yes, that is true. We come back in the evening and I always see my wife on the phone. And thanks to Michael, he introduced the app, the Smart Receipts, and we use it very well. Like we all get back home and either my wife is on the phone, I'm on the phone trying to remember what we use every dollar for, every cent we spent, and put it in this app to make sure that we are on track. And for her, she still used the purse Mary Beth gave us, where you put the sticker on for spending, for clothing, for salon. And I had a picture of that I shared with Mary Beth and John to have a look at. She has taken I think she was at the training. She has taken a personal on the training, and it's helping us. It's helping us keep a check on each other. She has to ask, hey, have you filled your Smart Receipts? I said, yes. Have you done yours? It helps us to keep track of everything that we spend.
So you're out of debt. You're diligently tracking your spending. What has happened with your savings since the training?
It's been phenomenal. I mean, it's been awesome. As I said initially, I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but I consider myself a giver, where I give money to people, I mean, based on emotions, based on whatever story you tell me that I could connect with, I'll probably have to go into my purse to look for something to give to you. But I realized after the training, it changed. And because we had budgeted for everything, there was nothing like free money hanging out anywhere. We knew where our money was to be put into, because initially, as I said, we wanted to get out of debt so that we are not telling God that He's an insufficient provider. We wanted Him to know that we know He's a provider. So we budgeted every single thing out for clothing, for salon, and we had what we call the personal allowance that she can use for whatever she wants. I can also use for whatever I want. And we still had the extra giving. So if you come and our extra giving is done, we just tell you, okay, we'll see if next month we can put you on, but we don't have any money to give to you. So our savings actually changed. We were saving, we had to open a joint account together, M-Fund. I think the other time I recommended the M-Fund to Wema. She was asking about a good accounting portfolio to invest in. So we opened an M-Fund where we keep our savings. And out of that, we've been able to buy a piece of land that we are planning on, starting to build. And I was taking a lot of lessons from Emmanuel about, having to plan everything now, knowing the number of blocks you need, knowing the sand and all that. So there's a lot of points I picked from Emmanuel. We are about to start. We got a piece of land. We had our building plans and everything worked out. We fully paid for that.
Yeah, great.
That's awesome.
Great. And I just, I remember as you were telling your story to us, we were thinking back about 6 months ago, you described before you came to the training what your life was like. And I went, Sylvester, so in 6 months, you've gotten out of debt. You've got a great tracking. You and your wife are now communicating fully openly about financial issues. You've got an emergency savings. You've got a tract of land. I said, could you believe all that happened in 6 months?
No. I mean, I still look back and it was a shock. And it feels worse because I just look back and I realize how much I could have achieved if I knew this earlier, But looking back to just 6 months and looking at how far we've come. And I think for us as a couple, there's been more trust because first, I'm sure she's thinking you take all this amount of money as salary. She doesn't know what I was doing with it. But now having us open up on our salaries and, know that we are planning together, this is God's money and this is what we want to use it for, to bring glory to God and also to fulfill a goal. I mean, the whole thing about budgeting is to have a goal. And our goal now is to, look at building this piece of land to prevent us from renting. And even, if there's other rooms, we can rent them out to make some money for ourselves. So it's been a journey for us. And
yeah. And so this is a very personal question, but I just see it so many times. This training has changed your marriage, hasn't it?
Yes, it's us. And I'll say it's more of the trust and openness, because initially it was just my paycheck, what I do with it. It had nothing to do with her. And I mean, that has been it from, looking at our parents. That's what we see. My dad is always responsible to pay our fees and whatever we need. But I don't remember the last time he sat with mom to discuss anything about salary. So for me, it's a good step that now we don't have children to have seen the bad side of it. Now we know the good way out. So we talk over it openly. We are able to, I mean, if people even ask for money, my wife looks at me, I look at her, and we are like, we don't have anything for extra giving, so we just have to say no. So there has been that truthfulness with each other, knowing that we don't have, even if it's my parents asking, we know we don't have. There's no way we have to go and take out of our health or out of our savings to just satisfy someone because they think we have. No, we don't do that. So having the budget has always made sure that we are disciplined to the point of not just giving money out because we have to.
Okay, so let me ask you the same question I asked Emmanuel. What would you say to someone who's been to the training, got started, ran into hard times, and felt like, oh, this just is too hard, this won't work? What would you say to that person?
This is a hard one. Yeah, I must say we still need to trust God and know that He's the provider. Let me share a quick story I didn't hear on yesterday, but when we wanted to save at MFund, we had this other, quick schemes around that you could, invest money and make about 50% in a month or about 30%. And my wife asked that we pray over it to select a place to save. So my brother had convinced me about this 50% every month savings. So I wanted to go put it in because I wanted, a quick means of having money come to me. So we prayed over it and God said we shouldn't put it in that 50%. We should just go to Data Bank and do the MFund as we agreed. I saw it in a dream and my wife also confirmed the same. So we went over to Data Bank, picked up a form and we filled it. So, and just about some few months ago, the scheme actually was, I think it was a scam. They had to close the company down. So we would have lost a huge capital if you had gone to save there. So anybody who had, gone out of debt like we did and wanting to start again, I want the person to trust God. So far as you started and you're able to do it, you can do it again. There's no point in giving up. If you give up, then you are still telling God is an insufficient provider. You need to have a plan. We had a plan, and that was how we came out of it. So if you have a plan, it doesn't matter what happened, just get back into it. Talk to someone, if it's a financial advisor, or call Mary and John and say, man, I was hit up and I need to start all over again and help me out. I mean, having the plan helped me a lot. And that was how we're able to save, because there were people I didn't even know I owed. And, listing them down, brought all the names, and we're able to have a plan towards that. So the person shouldn't give up, should talk to someone to encourage, or listen to some of our stories. The stories always help. I remember when you shared the story of the person in Kenya and Ethiopia about how, he was able to share the story with the wife and they started their home and business. All those motivators. It's not just about, just telling us what to do, but hearing the story and knowing that it can be achieved was far more, inspiring for some of us to give it a try.
Oh,
just
awesome.
begin. The person should just start.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So has Wayma been collecting questions?
Yes. Wayma, do you have some questions in the chat, or does anybody here would like to ask a question?
So far I asked a question which Emmanuel has answered, but I think I can raise it up so that everybody can hear from Emmanuel himself.
Okay, great.
Emmanuel, I had asked, and thank you for responding, by the way, but I had asked, you mentioned that your professor had told you like it's better if you save 30% of your total income to your savings rather. Would you say, or is it like assumed that your professor was telling you this because you're a single person, or does this also apply to a family-based setting?
If you got manual unmuted.
Yeah.
Emmanuel? Okay, I don't think he's there, so he did respond.
Okay.
He did respond. Just to for everybody, just in case you wanna answer to that, is that he responded as Wema. Thanks for the question. 30% or more saving goal may apply to both single and family people. It depends on your goal, your spending habits, and extent to which you are willing to sacrifice. For us, it worked since in 2012 we got married, and sometimes we even saved much more. I think he's back.
Yeah, Wema, thank you. Sorry for the connection issue. Just like I responded in the message, for us, the issue of saving and for single or those that are married is one of the things that we've learned is that when you are married, never make a saving or financial decision alone. Like I've learned from a friend of mine, most of you know him, Joseph is on this call. He told me that most divorce-related issues arises because of money. And those that are married know that. So we learned that as a couple, we really need to be transparent about money, but also really it's not about just those who are married. Even for the single people, the issue of being 30%, 20% or 10%, depending on the goal that you have to be very, very clear on what you want to achieve, and also look at your means, because sometimes your needs might not allow you to save 30%, but it can allow you 20%. So it's really about your specific expenses and income. For us, we had to sacrifice a lot. We had to be disciplined, and we had to make sure that we were not just emotionally giving, and we sustained the giving. So it's really can be customized to individual needs or the incomes or expenses that you have.
Okay.
Other
Great.
questions? Go ahead, Magma.
Yeah, so Michael asked, Emmanuel, which tool are you using for savings? Is there a specific tool that you use for savings in this case?
Tool for saving, what do you mean by tool?
Okay, I guess what he meant was, for example, the cards, the envelope cards, the Philippines usually distribute after the level 1 training, or it can be kind of an app, maybe that gives you like a breakdown of this is how much you've spent this month and this is what you intend to save and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. So for us, really, we have a family budget Excel sheet that we look at and be able to, interpret our finances based on that. And it is very clear that, for example, when it comes to the money that is spent at home or the things that we do at home, we know exactly according to that spreadsheet, how much do we need to spend, how much do we need to save. So we use just a normal Excel spreadsheet.
No, okay. Thank you so much for your response. If anyone else has questions, please feel free to just chat on the chat section, or just unmute yourself and feel free to speak up. So Michael also asked Sylvester, is that your testimony is very inspiring, and I agree to what Michael says. What was your payment plan to pay off all your debts? Actually, I want to know that as well. What was your payment plan?
Yes.
Because in 6 months, that's amazing.
Yes, as I replied to Michael, I said the goal for us was to get out of debt, and we channel 50% of our monthly inflow plus selling of household unused items. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So maybe to go a little bit deeper on that, was there like any specification that, okay, I owe, for example, give me a name. I owe Amanda 50,000. This month you're gonna pay her 20,000. Next month you're gonna pay her 30,000, or did you just accumulate all of it and give her a lump sum of what you owed her?
Yeah, I think there was only one person that we had to call and arrange for a repayment plan. That was we'll do every 2 weeks. But the rest, after selling off some of the household items and plus the 50%, we're able to just pay them off outright.
Oh, wow.
It was just once, yes. We had a lot of unused items that were of value, like having a whole deep freezer that was not being used, rice cooker, all those were just sitting at home for nothing. So it was a difficult thing, but we had to sell off everything and add the 50% that we're getting from our monthly inflow to that to help pay. Yes.
Wow, amazing. Yeah.
And I mean, to have your wife support a decision that she didn't, she wasn't part of helping you, borrow that amount of money, and she was still willing to support in the payment. I mean, I owe her a lot, for that support. And that's, as Emmanuel rightly said, we need to be transparent with our spouse to let them know this is how much we owe, especially if you want to have a plan now, you need to be clear with the debts, you need to be clear with your savings plans and let them know everything.
Yeah, thank you for your response, Sylvester. Those are the questions so far that have been asked. So in case anyone just, as a reminder, please feel free to indulge or join in the conversation, maybe share your own experiences and ask any questions. Over to you.
Yes, we're better together.
That's
So if you
true.
have any questions, we want to hear your questions to these guys. One thing I hear in all the workshops is everybody is called a stingy man when you stop, I guess, giving and start saving. How do you balance that, and what do you do? What do you say to that?
Mary Beth, for the stingy giving tag, one of the things that I've learned is that you can't stop that. You'll be called stingy, but also I don't believe that because you have a goal or a project or you're saving towards something, you should stop giving. What I think you should stop is giving emotionally, like emotional giving, where, like, everybody who needs something knows that you have money. They'll come to you and say, hey, give me this or that. No, you give because this is what you've purposed to give, and it's part of your budget. But even that which is not part of your budget, in African context, many of our brothers and sisters know this. You have to really practice a lot of wisdom, use a lot of wisdom in giving, not simply because people want you to give. So I think the biggest lesson is people will call you stingy and they will not know who you have given to or not. You have to know that you are accountable to God, and you also should be accountable if you're married to your spouse and any other person involved. Don't just be careless with money or be stingy simply because you're doing a project. God loves a cheerful giver.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Wow.
you, Emmanuel. I love what you just said. Stop emotional giving. That's powerful.
Powerful.
Sylvester, how would you answer that? Because I remember you talked about when they would call you stingy a lot, and you had a way of handling that.
Yeah, so I mean, in church, it's normal when we close from church, people who are, don't have will just approach you. I mean, and I will give. I mean, normally I'll just give you for transportation, or just as you go home, use it for some food or snacks or something. But when we started and we didn't have any money to give extra or within my personal allowance, then I'll just say, oh, you can talk to my wife about it. So, and they will never go to my wife because we both know there's no money for extra giving. So in order not to, I'll just say, okay, you talk to my wife. They wouldn't go. And they started saying, oh, if we ask you money now, you say, go to your wife. Why don't you give us? And I said, I don't have. She's the one that keeps the money. So for you to get, you need to go to. And that helped a lot. But they still have to say, they know you have and you just don't want to give. And I say, if I do have, I will give, but I don't. I don't make any other promises,
I like that way you work together. If someone's kind of too free of giving money out, say, "Oh, you need to talk to my wife, or you need to talk to my husband." I like that. Joint together. Wema.
Yeah, I also wanted to echo what Emmanuel has just mentioned about giving, even in our African context, in how giving at most times just translates to over generosity. And I'd like us to even kind of do self-reflection, because sometimes we give to give and not give to give. I don't know if I'm making sense, but you're just giving so that you can stop being bothered. And that's not what the Bible says. You have to give from the heart. Another thing is there's a very thin line between showing off and giving. So you might be thinking you're being generous, but then you're not being generous at all. So you have to look through yourself and see the reasons of why you're giving. Are you giving to show off, or just from your heart? Lastly, I'd also like to point out the fact that whenever you see people depending on you to provide for them, that's really, really alarming, because God is the provider. So if they shift their dependence from God to you, most likely God will kind of put you down so that they can look up to him and not you. So be careful with that, because you might, I'm not saying you're going to lose your job, but you might lose your very source of income trying to support people who have the ability to support themselves, and then you just presenting, oh, you know, I have to help my uncle, I have to help my auntie. You're like wearing yourself, and you don't have the capacity to do so. So the best way is to teach them how to save, teach them on how to spend their money wisely, so that you can all grow together.